So this question gives us NFL teams, the number of touchdowns, and the number of wins during the 2020 regular season. The teams with 4.5 wins tied each other. That's why I gave them each a half a win for the tie. And we have a scatter plot here, number of touchdowns on this axis, number of wins on that axis. And it looks rather linear. And our goal is to do a linear regression to find that line of best fit. So how can we predict the number of wins from the number of touchdowns? To do this, we're going to need to use the graphing calculator. So let me go ahead and pull that up. So our graphing calculator is here. And we want to go ahead and put in those various numbers. So we're going to go to Stat here, Edit here, and then we'll put numbers in there. If you had numbers there before, I'll just show you how to clear out an old list. Second, Memory, clear all lists. If you had other items in the lists, that will clear all of them. But again, Stat, Edit, we can put numbers in that list. So you will see the Kansas City Chiefs had 57 touchdowns. And the Packers had 66 touchdowns. Buffalo Bills had 60 touchdowns, etc. How about the number of wins that they have? The Kansas City Chiefs had 14 wins. The Packers had 13 wins. And the Buffalo Bills also had 13 wins. So I'm going to go ahead and put all 32 teams in there, their number of touchdowns and their number of wins. And then we will have the TI calculator find the equation of the line of best fit. I have put all of the numbers into the calculator. So we've got them there. If you're so inclined, let me turn off anything else. We can look at a quick stat plot. Second stat plot, turn it on, enter turns it on. But you want to turn it off when you're done. And the scatter plot is there, you can see. I'm going to go to Zoom Stat, which is number 9. And there's another scatter plot for me of all of the points. Now, the question tells me to use a regression equation. So we go back and look at it. It says use a linear regression equation on the graphing calculator to determine the equation of the line of best fit. So wins is some number times touchdowns plus some number. So I go back to the graphing calculator. There is our scatter plot. So we can kind of hand draw our line of best fit. Probably looks like that. So I can quit to get rid of that. We're going to find our line of best fit. Stat, calc, linear regression right here, number 4, or number 8 if you prefer. We'll go with AX plus B. So A is the slope and B is the y-intercept. Enter. So the X list is L1 as it usually is. Frequency list, fine. Store the regression equation. We'll store it in Y1 just so we can graph it together with our scatter plot. And then we'll calculate it. So it is telling me that A is about 0.274, and it's telling me B is about negative 4.604. So let's go ahead, and that's AX plus B. Remember, Y was wins equals A times touchdowns plus B. So this is what we have, right? Again, from the calculator, A is 0.274 minus 4.604. Y is AX plus B, but Y corresponded to wins, X corresponded to touchdowns. So when you go ahead and fill in those numbers on the paper, so wins is 0.274 times touchdowns. Plus negative 4.604, or if you like, minus 4.604. Okay, so let's take a look at that graph. Let's go back to the graphing calculator. And you saw that I stored the regression equation there in Y1. So, and I have my window from before with all of the dots. If I hit graph, there is my line of best fit going through the scatter plot. Very good. And then we have one more question to answer on the paper. What does it say? It says, predict the number of wins for a team that scores 40 touchdowns. So the Chicago Bears, for example, scored 40 touchdowns, and they had 8 wins. Do they have more than they should have based on this model? Whereas the Philadelphia Eagles scored 42 touchdowns, but only had 4.5 wins. So interesting to see what this model predicts. So we're going to take our 0.274 times 40 minus 4.604. So back to the graphing calculator. We can do it by hand first, second quit. So A, 0.274 times 40 minus 4.604. And we predict the number of wins should have been about 6.4, we'll call it. So the predicted number of wins, about 6.4. You can't have 0.4 wins. So 6.5 wins, 6 wins plus a tie. So you can see somewhere between the 4.5 the Philadelphia Eagles had with 42 wins and the 8 wins the Chicago Bears had with 40 touchdowns, excuse me. Philadelphia Eagles had 42 touchdowns with only 4.5 wins. Chicago Bears had 8 wins with only 40 touchdowns. But we could also have done that with the regression equation on the calculator. Remember, we stored it in there. So if I just go second, if I go to vars, yvars function, it was stored in Y1. And I want to know what happens if we plug in 40. I should get something very close to 6.356. Of course, I rounded a little bit, 6.348. So again, 6.4 thereabouts is what we're getting for our number of wins. A little bit more accuracy there because I had more decimal points. So that's the idea. Looking at the scatter plot, you can see that a linear regression is reasonable, that as we move from left to right, the dots do seem to be ascending. Yes, they're in a cloud, so touchdowns don't tell us the whole story. Also, how many touchdowns do you give up? How many field goals do you get? There are other issues that are involved. But we see that that linear regression equation gives us a fairly good predictor of how that works. And then if we're looking at our scatter plot thing again, right, our graph, there is the line of best fit going through the scatter plot. There's one more thing I want to show you before I finish this, namely how do you clear that? Second stat plot, turn the plots off. Notice plot 1 is on. Turn it off, otherwise that may cause you some trouble later. Second quit. Now y equal, you'll see the plot is off.